Steam input, the hallmark feature of the Steam controller. And yes, that includes the Steam Deck as well. Become an input god with Steam input? That's blasphemy. How can you be an input god with a handheld that only has so many physical buttons? As per usual, the secret sauce is in the software, and the software is Steam input. Steam input is a supremely powerful remapping agent that's included with Steam. It's designed to be used with controllers, allowing you to map keyboard buttons and other controller buttons to specific buttons. But it's so much more than just that. You can set button combinations as a single button, but the Steam Deck only has so many buttons. What if you want to play like an MMO game that has like a billion different commands? There's even a solution for that too. Multiple different solutions if so desired. For a single custom Steam input control layout, you could feasibly have unlimited controls. Or at least, no one knows what the upper limit is. No one's been crazy enough to try it out. But whatever the case may be, there's enough controls for basically whatever game you want to play. So what's the purpose of this video today? Well, it's not a full guide on how to use Steam input, but rather 5 cool things you can do with Steam input. My game of choice here is Starbound. Starbound has enough controls to rival an MMO, and as such, I want to be able to make full use of all of the game's controls. Let's talk menus. Ever see a game with one of these? This is called a Radial Menu, and you can set one up in just about any game you desire. All you need to do is hit up controller settings, and then go into edit layout. And from there you can set up your own virtual menu. We'll name this one Items, as we'll be using this to manage our item hotbar. And you can select one of 3 styles. Of course, we're gonna go with Radial Menu because that's the coolest one. And from there you can set your menu up. You can start with a center button, but then you can also set up buttons around the perimeter. You can even assign some default icons to these commands. Of course, your icon choices are kind of sparse, you know? You can also name your commands too, so that when you pop up the Radial menu, it tells you exactly what you're selecting. While this would be a lot easier to set up with a mouse and keyboard, you could just use the Steam Deck's own controls to configure everything from scratch. The touch menu is somewhat similar, but albeit in a square grid instead of circular. And the hotbar menu is something else entirely. More on that later. The next feature I want to look at is the ability to create action layers. What the heck is an action layer? Essentially, an action layer is a control layer that's overlaid on top of whatever controls you have set up. An action layer is typically overlaid on top of your controls, meaning all of your controls are the same except for whatever you change in that action layer. For example, by default my right analog stick aims, but if I hold left on the D-pad, it transforms into a radial menu, and when I let go of left on the D-pad, I can aim with my right stick again. But this is just one thing you can do with action layers. Another thing you can do with this is set up nested radial menus. How do you do that? First, go into action sets and then set up a new action layer by pressing the cogwheel. Name this layer whatever you want. Then go into virtual menus and create your first menu. When adding a virtual menu entry, you'll want to select action sets and then select add action set layer. Be sure to select the correct one. To make things a little more responsive, you'll want to go in the settings and then set fire start delay to 120. You can either use the slider or press Y to directly edit the value. Then set up your second menu. Set it up however you want, but you want at least one of the buttons to be a remove action set button. Be sure to select the proper layer you want to remove. For this remove action set layer button, you will want to go into settings and set fire start delay to 120. This is the part where things get a little tricky. In the default layer, you'll want to set one of your controls to be the radial menu, or touch menu in this case. In my use case, I selected the right trackpad to be my touch menu, but any thumbstick or trackpad will do. Just remember which one you used. And then use L1 or R1 to switch action set layers. You'll want that same trackpad or stick to be the other menu. It can be radial or touch. And you're done. Repeat this entire process for any other nested radial menu options. And in theory, you should have something like this. Beautiful. A true marvel. A true masterpiece. There are multiple avenues to set up a similar effect, though in my use case, this is what I use. Here's another little tip for you. Ever have a pesky little button command that you need to press? Next to an existing command, click on Add Extra Command, and set up this new command as the second button in your combo. Repeat this as many times as needed. You can also do this with radial menu options as well, or you can do this with buttons. It's your choice, really. In my case, I'm creating a command that presses 3 buttons at the same time in a radial menu. This one command presses Shift, Control, and the right arrow key, all at the same time. The next feature I wanted to look at is Mouse Region. Mouse Region translates your movement from your thumbstick or trackpads into mouse movement, but instead it maps the input's total range of movement one-to-one with the screen space. For example, pressing the top right corner of your trackpad moves your mouse all the way to the top right corner of the entire region. Given this game doesn't actually support controllers, there is no real right stick aiming like you would expect from a game like this. So Mouse Region fulfills that role quite nicely, almost like a twin stick shooter, if you will. You can also have Mouse Region control specific parts of the screen. Like for example, you see this map in the bottom left corner? You can set a Mouse Region to be in that corner right there and have a trackpad be dedicated to just map functions. And finally, you can set an always on command. This always on action is, well, always on, at least when you're on this action layer or action set. All you have to do is go down to action sets, click on the cogwheel, and add an always on command. You can set the always on command to be basically any button you want. For example, if you set the always on command to Shift, then Shift will always be pressed. This feature is practically mandatory if you plan on playing any games that require touchscreen. You would need to select touchscreen native support as your always on command. That way, games that support actual native touchscreen input can make use of the touchscreen. This feature is also useful in case you play a lot of games that require a lot of button combinations. Also, I find the icon selection in Steam Input kind of lacking. Yes, Valve added a bunch of new icons to Steam Input, but the fact of the matter is, it's not enough. It doesn't cover every possible situation, unfortunately. So we'll remedy this by adding our own custom icons. The only real downside is if you decide to share your configuration, it doesn't transfer the icons over either. Essentially meaning that if someone downloads your configuration and tries to use it, they're not going to see those icons. So do keep this in mind. Currently, this feature is only available in the beta branch. Hopefully though, we'll get this feature in the stable branch soon, and hopefully the process won't be any different from what's being shown in this video. First, you'll want to go into your home directory, and you'll want to enable this option right here, Show Hidden Files. This option will be important in many Steam Deck tutorials. You'll then want to head over into .steam, and then Steam, and then 10-foot, Resource, Images, and Library. And then in Library, go into Controller, Binding Icons. These are where custom icons will live. Personally, I think Valve needs to make a separate folder for custom icons. As you can see, I've got a bunch of PNG files here. Just copy them over into this directory right here, and you're done. Your custom icons should be a PNG format. For the best experience, I recommend using minimalistic icons, like these. These are pure white and transparent. This also makes it easy to apply colors to these icons. But believe it or not, these icons can be animated. Ever heard of an animated PNG? As you can see here, these are the icons that are available to you. You can certainly make your own icons if so desired, though in this case, I don't really feel like doing so. This is why I like using GameIcons.net. There are thousands of generic game icons for you. Anything from games with swords to games with guns to sports games to magic games. There's all sorts of different icons for you to use here. These icons were made to be used in games, but you can use them in your Steam input menus if so desired. Just be sure to download these without any backgrounds as a PNG file. That said, as of October 29th, 2022, unfortunately the beta update kind of breaks nested radial menus. They'll still function, but the second layer doesn't show up on the HUD at all. Hopefully though, Valve will address this. So what did we learn today? Well, we learned 6 unique tricks that you can use for Steam input to make your experience a lot better. Yes, admittedly, some of these are niche features as these will only really be useful in PC exclusive games, like RTSs or MOBAs, or MMORPGs, or games like Starbound that don't have console ports and don't really have controller support either. You know, what's really funny is that Starbound was supposed to have console ports for both PlayStation and Xbox, but those never came to fruition. The unfortunate truth is that they seem to have abandoned the console ports. Furthermore, any work that they did to make the game more controller friendly, well, they didn't seem to bring it over to PC, and I have no idea as to why. But honestly, this kind of makes Starbound the perfect testbed for Steam input controls. The road to becoming an input god is harsh, but I know you will be able to make the journey, and hopefully I'll have some more tricks and tips for you guys to learn. Till then, see you later. If you wish to directly support High-Tech Lowlife, you should check out the link in the description below for our Patreon page. And if you like this video, you should give it a thumbs up and subscribe as well. And if you want, you can also join my Discord server. As always, links in the description down below for all of this.